Survivor's ready! Direct from Hobart, it's time for you to hear those so-called experts from Survivor Oz talk about another reality show, despite the fact they always said they wouldn't ever talk about Survivor. It's The Amazing Race Oz, and here's your host,
Colin Hilding.
Hello and welcome back to The Amazing Race Oz, our season 27 U.S. coverage, continuing for another back-to-back episode. We had another non-elimination, the third one in a row like this. The two most recent episodes that aired, Krakow, I'm Going to Get You, followed by the second part, It's Always the Quiet Ones. And again, I'm hosting as Noah doesn't really care enough about this season, apparently, to be here again. But I'm joined by two gentlemen who do care enough about this season, enough about our show, and you, the listeners, to actually care. First, I'll introduce, joining us for, the second, maybe third time this season, Anthony Rossi.
Yeah, probably the second. I have not been here that often, so Good to be back, I guess.
I guess you just wait for Noah to leave every single time, and then you jump on.
I'm so happy that it worked out and Noah's not here this week.
Yeah.
Peaceful podcasting.
We're curious about this one. I don't think we've had you on since the season preview episode. So our second contributor, I guess third contributor, including me today. Maybe this has something to do with Noah as well. We're not sure, but we're glad to have him back. Jared Lubik's here, finally.
Yeah, it's good to be him back. It's been a while, I think. With all the double episodes, missing out on those, but it's good to finally be able to talk about one of them.
Now, I mean, you've skipped episodes without Noah so far, so are we going to say that the reason you're usually not here is because you don't care to be around Alec and Jordan, our newest contributors? Why are you usually not here?
Who knows? I think I'll just keep that under wraps for the time being and use that as ammunition later.
We have Alec and Jordan very paranoid right now that Jared Lubik's out to get them. Let's jump into the episodes. We're going to cover this a little bit differently here, not so much talking about all the challenges. As we found, these non-eliminations or, to be continued episodes, by the time you get to the next one, the challenges aren't necessarily as memorable, but the storylines are definitely holding up from week to week. So we'll kind of do a little bit less on the challenges, a little bit more on the storylines here. First of all, starting off, we have the rivalry that just won't die here. Tanner and Josh, and Justin and Diana. So this seemed to be all put to rest, a little whiles back where the U-turn wasn't used or the green team didn't use the U-turn. And all of a sudden, Tanner and Josh are still upset at Justin. There was a pretty funny comment in here, which I actually liked, where they were kind of making fun of Justin a little bit, and I think they said that Justin's the one who hired Phil to be on the race because he's that knowledgeable about the show and that in control of the show. Little bit of a funny line, a little bit true. That is kind of the way that Justin comes across sometimes, but I'm not down on Justin and Diana. But are we surprised that this rivalry is coming back again, considering it seemed like the entire season was going to be based around the storyline, and then it just seemed to be dropped? So let's start with you, Rossi. Were you expecting this to come back at some point?
I knew there would be this constant battle between the two because they're kind of big. They're two big teams of the season, and so they were always going to battle. I didn't know if it was going to come back as a rivalry because it kind of did fizzle out in the middle where we didn't hear too much about it, and then we kind of came back. So I don't know where I'm at with it. I think
ready to go.
Lately there's been more tension with the teams in Chris and Logan than with Tanner and Josh or Justin and Diana. So it's been a bit weird in that front.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be shifting a little bit. I think that's the one benefit. When I first heard this confessional, I guess, I was worried we're just going to be getting back to the same old thing again with Texas versus Green Team. But you're right, we've had a little bit more of the other teams introduced this season to the point where everybody, minus Kelsey and Joey, which I had my opinions on that in past weeks, and I'll have more coming up. I think everybody's getting pretty decent airtime now. We'll get some more opinions as we go on with this. Jared, the Tanner and Josh, Justin and Diana rivalry, is this thing going to die? Do you think that this was, maybe they were just putting this off for a few weeks just so the audience could get a chance to move on and then bring it back now?
I think it was always going to come back up. I think it's kind of just the nature of the race with Justin and Diana that not even just the guys, kind of all of the other teams, they sort of bring up this rivalry, and you kind of wonder, is that to do with Justin and Diana, the way they're acting? But everything that they've shown, it seems to be, it's just based on their performance throughout the race, and everybody actually kind of seems to get along okay with them, but it's just because they're constantly coming first. I think it just naturally builds up that want for the other teams to take them down.
So at this point, let's get a little bit of an opinion on Justin and Diana. They're winning back to back and everything, and we talked about in the past whether they were maybe being a little bit overexposed on this season. What are our opinions going right into this on Justin and Diana? Rossi?
As a team, I'm enjoying them. I think they're one of those teams that kind of is very all around. They're good at all these skills. Like Justin may have all these physical skills, and but Diana's got these fine skills of being able to crochet or something like that will allow them to succeed. So there won't be a challenge that I foresee them getting into where they're not going to, one of them isn't going to be able to shine. But it's really rough with the race because they're always in front, and they're good at everything. So it's a bit frustrating in that aspect that there's no change, but we'll see how it goes.
Jared, are you feeling they're maybe a little bit overexposed? This scene possibly be an example where even the other teams are kind of getting the feeling they're overexposed?
Not particularly. I think definitely in the first couple of legs, it took me maybe a while to get used to sort of how much screen time they were getting and how over the top Justin is. But I think with the team constantly coming first, you kind of need that, because it very easily could have turned into the season just predictable and I suppose overly frustrating that they keep winning. But I think just showing them so much and showing kind of their passion for the race and everything, it's really got me kind of on board with it's fine if they keep coming first because they're entertaining and they're providing good content, and just the fact that their storyline kind of evolves and shifts leg to leg. They don't always get along. They have their arguments, but they get over it. And I think it just makes them a really interesting team to watch.
Yeah, I'm throwing the question out there whether they're overexposed, and I do think that there's an element to that where we're maybe seeing a bit too much of them, and that we could see more of the other teams. But at the same time, the one thing that's become really interesting about this season is the storylines, and we don't really see that in regular seasons. Everybody seems to be like, maybe it is just they're finishing 3 legs in a row or 4 or 5 legs in a row as the number one team, but all the other teams seem to revolve around Justin and Diana too. And they definitely are the most interesting on the race. I mean, I think Justin is by far going to be one of the most memorable characters. You can compare him almost to a more likable version of Jonathan, Jonathan and Victoria going all the way back. Definitely the type of character that people are going to be very divided on, but a character that really grabs you on TV. Difference being that I think there's no way that anybody walks away from that season liking Jonathan, whereas I am actually kind of surprised every time I hear people talk about Justin as being annoying, because he's definitely an over-the-top character. He's definitely likable though. So are you guys seeing a little bit of this online? Whoever can jump in if you've read more about this than I have, but the fans' reactions to Justin, are you finding that this is valid at all, or are people maybe just a little bit? If somebody can explain to me why the fans are reacting negatively to him.
I guess it comes down to the level of exposure. Because I feel like if the roles were reversed between Justin and Diana and Chris and Logan, I feel like everyone would hate Chris or something like that, and I feel like Justin and Diana would kind of fly under the radar in that aspect. Because as the season's going on, Chris to me is getting more and more annoying, whereas Justin is getting more and more appealing. So I think it's the fact that it's exposure. The more you're shown, the more likely you are to be found annoying or incredibly likable. So it's definitely about the screen time.
Jared, do you have anything to add on that? If not, we can move on.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think even for me, kind of watching to start off with, I did kind of find Justin annoying, because it felt like he was playing a character and just being so kind of over the top and maybe a bit arrogant. But I think as the season has kind of progressed, become clear that that is kind of who he is, and I just love that, like, as a team, they have so much passion for the race, and I think to start with that maybe felt a bit constructed, but it's so clear that they're just out there to enjoy every moment of the race, and I think that just makes his personality kind of fine, and once you kind of accept it like that, then it's really fun to watch them.
I'll just say right off the bat that I think you're onto something when you say, you know, that they're enjoying it. But if I'm going to have a complaint about this season, and it's really not Justin and Diana's fault, it's that we do see them finishing number one all the time, and they are enjoying themselves so much. And I think one of the things that makes The Amazing Race a really fascinating show, especially in comparison to a lot of other ones out there, is how tense it is. And when the first place team always knows they're in first, and they're having so much fun, it's hard to really feel that tension. I think that's one thing that's maybe killing the anticipation every single week about, you know, what's going to happen. Plus, it is a little bit predictable they're going to be number one. But we'll talk just really quickly about the challenges. You know, this first episode had a couple of things. We had the mine, which was definitely hard. I mean, that's one thing I'm going to say right away is in comparison to season 26, where I think every week we're complaining these challenges just seem way too easy. The mine thing definitely seemed like it was hard. The piano one was very hard, especially for Krista, who was pretty much just begging in the street. I don't know if she really understood the concept of this. And was there another challenge in that one? I think it was just those two. And the brief stop at the Schindler's List Memorial, I guess. I was kind of hoping we'd get, like, Liam Neeson in there. There was no way it was going to happen, nor would it really be respectful. But let's be honest. If anything makes this season a top 5 season, it would be Liam Neeson popping up. The pianos and the mines, did you guys like either of these challenges? You can go first, Rossi.
I'm just trying to recollect a bit of it. Yeah, I thought it kind of went back to the original Amazing Race ideas of more physical task takes less time, or the less physical task takes more time. So which one are you going to take? So I think I like that, tracing back to the past. And I thought the challenges were pretty good. I kept getting flashbacks of Canada 3 from the mining.
Yeah.
And I was like, I saw this challenge before, and I don't know why, and then it hit me. But I thought the challenges...
6 months ago.
Yeah. I thought the challenges were pretty good, so I can't complain.
Jared, did you think these challenges were harder than what we've seen on this season? Like, I'm not really drawing a lot in comparison for this season, but obviously season 26. But do you think the challenges are getting harder week to week on season 27?
I would say yes for the most part. I think there's been some kind of exceptions, but I think this was definitely one of the more physically demanding challenges that they've had on the show this season. Yeah, I thought they were both just really good. It was good that they were different enough, so there was kind of choice for the contestants. And I loved kind of the mine workers in the salt mine. You could see they're obviously having a lot of fun looking at these other people and the way that they were trying to get the salt from the wheelbarrow into the carts, and they're just kind of having a chuckle to themselves. So, I mean, that was fun to watch.
And I think the mine's one of the better environments we've had this season, too. If I'm going to have another small complaint about season 27, it's not necessarily the locations we've been to, but the environments for the challenges have just kind of been a little bit bland. I think the mine's very memorable. The piano one, like, let's talk about Tiffany and Krista. We'll just get them as a team out of the way first. There was so much talk that they had in the first couple episodes about everybody's going to be underestimating us, you know, because we're cheerleaders, because we're good-looking girls. If we were estimating anything out of them, I think it's that in a challenge where you basically have to get donations from the public, that these two attractive cheerleaders would be able to get, you know, a little bit of something going. I don't know what was going on. It basically did just come down to begging. Like, Krista was just... If she had said anything other than, can you please help us, I think they may have had a bit more success. For me, this was the most surprising fail that I've seen from anybody on the race so far. A lot of things I think we've been surprised that Tiffany and Chris have been able to do. This one was hilarious. Let's just talk about Tiffany and Krista as a team. Rossi, are you enjoying them more now? Because I've definitely turned around. Despite the fact they failed this week, I felt that them failing makes them a more endearing team. How are you finding them now? We're about a little over halfway through the season.
They've definitely grown a lot. I was very negative. If you go back to the first episode, very negative on them. But I've definitely grown to enjoy them. Although they were a bit whiny in this piano challenge. Like, crying that people weren't fawning over their piano skills. Like, that was a bit annoying. But no, they've definitely grown.
Jared?
Yeah, I think they're a great team. I think early on it kind of felt like they weren't going to be around for the long haul, but they've definitely proven themselves over the weeks, and it's always interesting to watch because you know that they can have these sort of moments of brilliance where they just zoom through a challenge, but you always get the feeling that something's going to come unstuck each leg. But the fact that they've managed to kind of remain in the race is really impressive and a testament to just how much effort they're putting into everything.
This episode definitely revolved around, I think, two teams, Tanner and Josh, and the cheerleaders. Have I missed something? But, like, we had them talking about how, you know, we're the closest teams on the race. Have we even seen these teams interact so far? Like, Rossi, am I missing something? Did I miss a scene? Or are there some deleted scenes on the internet that are going on? Or is this really the first mention we've had of this?
I don't know, man. There have been a few, like, behind-the-scenes scenes that we've been getting this season, but nothing major. So maybe they just bond, and we don't see it.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising. Again, I think this is one of the areas where I'm not saying I dislike Justin and Diana. I think that they are my favorite team of the season, but having so much on one team is just making it harder to get to know these other ones. I would have thought that if we had maybe even just one less scene in one episode, that we could have actually seen something setting up this, unless this was all off camera, but who knows. Basically, the situation, this had a lot of interesting reactions online too, was it comes down to the final challenge, and there's two teams left. There's Tanner and Josh, and there's Tiffany and Krista, and they're basically carrying these trays. It's like a restaurant, you know, waiting challenge. And what happens, but Tiffany and Krista are struggling, so the Texans come up and they decide they're going to work together. In the end, the Texans, as good old country boys, decide they want to let the cheerleaders go ahead of them when they've worked together on this challenge. Little bit of foreshadowing that they ended up coming in last as a result of that. Rossi, have you read some of the reactions online about this?
No.
Okay, well, I'll get it. Jared, have you read any?
No.
Okay, well, we have opinions on Tanner and Josh on this show, which I was very surprised to see that the majority of people online were very positive on Tanner and Josh, talking about how much they were gentlemen and how, you know, this is the kindest thing ever, kind of going a little bit over the top, as if they're like, you know, these messiahs of the amazing race, because they simply said, no, ladies first. From their perspective, I think they thought that Tiffany and Krista were helping them more. And really, I don't think that's the way the scene played out. Rossi, give us your opinion. The Tiffany and Krista thing, were Tiffany and Krista helping out, or did Tiffany and Krista need the help?
They didn't want to help out anyone. They just needed the help. They were failing.
Jared, do you agree?
Oh, definitely. I think if they hadn't worked together, Tanner and Josh probably would have got through that challenge a lot quicker than the girls.
So this, again, if anybody heard the Amazing Race Canada, I think the biggest debate on that season was the thing about the Express Pass, which I know Rossi and I got into a debate on, where Cynthia didn't want to help, which I'm glad that we had the interview with Brian and Cynthia, and they cleared up some of my theories on that. But that's what this kind of reminds me of, where I think the fans aren't really looking closely enough at the show, because they're treating Tanner and Josh like these two really kind gentlemen, and ultimately it comes down to one thing they said, where they talked about how Tiffany didn't have to help us in that challenge, and that's why they felt obligated. It was more that they felt that they were being helped out, and I'm going to say less, you know, credit to Tanner and Josh, more credit to Tiffany and Krista, that they really needed help on this, and yet somehow they were able to, not they were intentionally doing this, but they were able to convince Tanner and Josh that they were the ones being helpful. I give, again, more credit to Tiffany and Krista on this than Tanner and Josh, but ultimately what happens is Tanner and Josh come in last, and it's a non-elimination, so we'll get into them a little bit more later, but real quick opinions on this. Rossi, do you think that this cost them? We know that there's the speed bump coming up, which turned into something different, but is this the moment where Tanner and Josh, let's just spoil it, are the ones eliminated? Is this where they lost the race?
Not necessarily. It's tricky because I want to say yes and no at the same time. I think this is the only major trip up that they've ever actually had, aside from the U-turn, but that's something out of their control. But then again, I also feel like they should do everything. So I want to say yes because they're the two strong guys that are always like gonna win the race. Like these guys got to watch out for them. They're the winning team kind of attitude. So like they should never mess up. They should never do anything wrong because they're always going to be a target. Mm-hmm. So yes and no.
Jared, give us your opinion on this. Tanner and Josh, did they cost the race for themselves here?
It's interesting. I'd say yes. It would have been interesting to see if they didn't have a roadblock, but were still U-turned in the next episode, where they would have ended up. But I think like the roadblock in the next episode was kind of ridiculous in terms of the amount of time that it took. So yeah, I think this definitely could have been the point that cost them the race. I think if they didn't have that roadblock, who knows where they end up finishing on the next leg. Maybe they get to the U-turn before some other people, and then they get to U-turn Justin and Diana. Who knows?
I think a lot of us on the show have been kind of critical about Tanner and Josh, but I've kind of defended them, a little bit along the way. And I'll say the same thing here. I'm not going on my way to say that they're not these nice guys. I think this definitely showed they are nice guys. I think it also showed that they really aren't cut out for the race if it's going to come down to this. They probably are nice enough guys. They would do this in everyday life no matter who it was. We already saw their opinions change on Justin and Diana pretty quickly when they realized they were wrong. But I really hope they're kicking themselves a little over this because I like, as Noah coined them, a douche bro team to have real competitiveness. And I think that's what hurt this for me is that it really hurts seeing how non-competitive they were in both of these episodes. And we can transition now into, I guess we might as well just talk about exactly what happens. You mentioned it, Jared. They got burned a little bit here. And this is where I feel a little bit sorry for them because speed bumps have become, non-eliminations used to be, give me all your money. You have to kind of barter your way through, which I always like that a little bit better. Now it's become the speed bumps. Let's be honest, speed bumps in past seasons have been it hasn't even been a factor in, what happens in the next episode. They're usually so easy. All of a sudden they throw this massive thing out there, which I don't know if they were underestimating how hard this is going to be or if they just figured, let's really throw one out there for the team. Instead of a speed bump, they have a double roadblock. So one guy goes, and then the other one has to do it too. This just happens to, again, my opinion, be probably the hardest roadblock of the season. I mean, at least judging by where the teams seem to be coming from. Rossi, did they get screwed over a bit here by the producers?
I think it's fair. Just because they had hyped themselves up so much and then kind of fizzled out over the fact that pretty cheerleaders were in front of them. Like, I think it's pretty fair in the grand scheme that these two, like, football-y Texas guys go down in a pretty epic way, so...
Jared, you gave us a little bit of opinion on this later, but if you want to elaborate, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they were kind of screwed over. I think, I suppose you're just happy that you're still in the race and you're lucky to get a non-elimination leg, so you could say that whatever's in the next leg is fair game considering you got saved. But yeah, compared to the other types of speed bumps, I think this was just so harsh, like potentially even more harsh than taking away their money or their clothes. So I'm not a huge fan of speed bumps in general, and I kind of like that they've tried something new, but I think this was potentially a step too far. I think to have to wait for your other member to finish it, maybe even if it was just they both had to do it, but they could both do it at the same time. But to have to wait for somebody to finish it, a challenge that took so long, and then to know that you really have no chance of catching up, especially on a leg where a U-turn is in play, I just thought it was a bit slack.
See, I'm a little bit torn on this because I like this as an idea. I think the speed bump I never really was on board with. And when they said, this is going to be kind of a double roadblock, the second person has to do it, I immediately was loving this idea. I'm like, this is a way to fix non-eliminations and really make it a challenge. But maybe it was just the wrong challenge. And I don't know if the environment was getting, because you would think just stirring some laundry up and laying it out wouldn't be that hard. But as I was saying earlier, it seemed like all of the teams were really struggling on this. I mean, between the mine and this, these are definitely the two hardest challenges of the season, and the piano. That's what I was saying. I think the challenges are a lot harder this week or this year. I don't know if the producers even anticipated how hard this was going to be, but the other problem is that this is a time-based challenge. You're just doing a task, and one person may be slightly faster than another, but anybody going through this is going to finish within a certain period of time. I think if they're going to do something like this, a double roadblock, I would rather it be, let's do one of these, find a needle in a haystack challenges. Dive into a pool and, pull out a lobster from the bottom if you can find it, whatever it is. Something where it leaves something up to chance. And the other problem, this being so early in the episode, I think it was obvious Tanner and Josh were so far behind that they were gone. I mean, Rossi, did you have any doubt throughout this episode that they were going to be the ones eliminated?
Not really. I assumed it would be them. Although, I was pretty surprised at how much time it took Denise and James to get to the pit stop. Like, that took forever.
Yeah, that's definitely the worst navigation I think we've seen in a long time. Jared, why don't you talk? If you want, you can talk a little bit about Tanner and Josh if you have anything else to add with this roadblock. But otherwise, we can talk about James Earl and Denise. Their navigation, can you think of anything else in recent memory where a team got this lost?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, it was just shocking. I feel like they were dropped at like completely the wrong end of the venue trying to get to the garden, and then they just kept walking, and I feel like they just did not make a decision at all and just kept walking for miles, and they just kept, what direction is it to this, and people just kept pointing, but they didn't bother to kind of ask how far it was. I mean, it was good to see eventually, like, they hopped in a tuk-tuk or a bike or something and took that the rest of the way, but for a moment there I really thought that they may have sort of screwed themselves over and they could have been the people going home instead.
The other thing that surprised me in this episode was, Team Texas, and this is where I say I don't like that maybe they don't come across as competitive as they did earlier in the season. To me, when they were doing all of the challenges in this episode, it seemed like not that they'd given up, but that they knew they were going to be eliminated. And obviously, fair enough, they were that far behind, but my notes actually say that Texas is moving so slow that they basically assumed the worst, and they could have been wrong. Now, we know that they did get eliminated. James Earl and Denise got in a little bit ahead of them. I mean, it looked like it was getting late. I didn't really have an idea of how much further behind Tanner and Josh were, but this had to have been closer than Tanner and Josh expected. The other disappointment I have in Tanner and Josh is I think they probably could have moved quicker through these challenges. I mean, Rossi, did you notice them going at a regular speed, or is this just me?
I wasn't paying attention to their pace.
Their pace just seemed unusually slow to me, and it was helping definitely make like the episode tenser at the end. But Jared, did you notice anything off about them?
I definitely felt like they had that feeling that they were going home, and it did seem like they were just in a bit of a down mood throughout the entire leg, but I don't know if I really noticed them going that slower. I think they were trying to make up the time, like in the detour, cutting the pieces of melon, I suppose thicker than the other teams was a smart idea, and I suppose they were trying to make up room where they could, but I definitely agree with you in the sense that it felt like they didn't have a real enthusiasm or passion on that last leg to be there.
It is sad in a way, and again, I actually think this is one of my favorite episodes of the season, if not my favorite episode. And it was pretty obvious they were going, but there was some good suspense at the end because of how lost Denise and James Earl were. And the whole time I just kept thinking, if Texas isn't out of this, what if they had just gone a little bit quicker, in one of these challenges? What if they had just given a little bit more? Could they have done? So, I mean, I'd like to get them on the show at some point. So if you're listening, Tanner and Josh, come on the show. We'd like to talk to you, especially about this. Find out if you were giving it your all here, or maybe the laundry challenge was just that exhausting. I don't know. But, it just seemed to me like they maybe shot themselves in the foot again here. But they definitely went out, I think, stronger than we expected them to. Before we finish off on Tanner and Josh for the season, exiting, I think, a lot earlier than most of us expected, let's talk about some of the other teams left in the race here. We talked a little bit about Denise and James Earl. Rossi, do you have anything to add on them?
Nothing this week except buy a map.
Jared?
Yeah, they're my favorite team in the race by far. I think Denise is just the best, and I love how she surprises everybody at all the challenges, and even in this episode like the first part of the challenge was sort of the tying, the folding, and the tying. She was ahead of everybody, and she only really fell behind when she had to carry the cloth over to take it to dry it out. But I think they're a great team. I love how they sort of keep sneaking through. I think they're my favorite team in this season by far.
And I'm going to say the rapping challenge was definitely their highlight of the season in France. We talked a lot about Justin and Diana. Anything to add on them really quickly, Rossi?
Not really. They were solid first place. Woo! Gotta shave.
Jared?
Yeah, not much to add. I'm officially on the green team train and hoping they make it far.
Well, don't miss your stop like Gyno Tooth.
Gyno Tooth. I'm really excited for the season to be over just so we could maybe talk to some of these teams, because I think that there's a lot of underdeveloped characters that let's mention one of them right now. Logan and Chris. You mentioned them a little bit, Rossi. I'm really not sure how I feel about them. I mean, week to week, we had this debate, I think it was with Kristen, maybe in the last episode. What is... Okay, Rossi, I don't know if you heard the episode or not, but who do you get annoyed with more, Logan or Chris?
Chris.
Okay, Jared? Oh, never mind. Chris! He says Chris. There's a lawnmower in the background, Jared, which I failed to read the note on. See, I don't know which one I am more annoyed with here, I'll be honest. I definitely see the point that Chris is very panicky, and he's always assuming the worst. He's kind of a negative guy, but again, as I said in another episode, I knew a guy just like him who was kind of like a good-natured guy and just really had a negative attitude about stuff, but was always trying his hardest. There's just moments of this where I feel like I would be defeated if I were him too. Like, it was in the first episode where Logan was just saying over and over again, Chris, you're going to fail. Chris, you're going to fail. And then all of a sudden he does well, and she's like, yeah, good job, Chris. You moved us up a spot. I'm like, you were just telling the man how pathetic he was like 5 minutes ago. I don't know.
Like the whole thing with the telling, like Justin and Diana that wrong. What are their names? Tiffany and Krista.
Yeah, the U-turn thing, which we didn't talk about.
Yeah, but that turned into a whole big drama where he's saying, well, you guys are telling us that we were telling them rumors, and like, just the way he went about it, like, it could have been a really smart move, but then he like tried to turn it around instead of taking the fall, and then getting mad at Logan and all that. Like, he just has such a, like, he's so annoying.
See, I don't really... Here's the thing. I find her more annoying than I find him, but I feel in real life I would be more annoyed with him than her. So,
like, she's just reacting to him, though. That's the thing. Like, a lot is him saying something really quick temper, or like quick irritation, like, comment, and then she'll be like, can you give me a second? Like, kind of comments like that.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this in last episode where Kristen was saying that, and I agree with her, that these are just two people who just do everything to rub each other the wrong way, you know? So that's where I think it's interesting to debate both sides of this, because I don't think there's any way to say that these two people are just the wrong people for each other, the wrong people in the race. And it'll be really interesting if we're 5 years down the road and we're talking to Logan and Chris, and they're married and happily with children, and you know, this is like the new Robin Amber of The Amazing Race. But it just seems like these are polar opposite people, and it's I can definitely see that either of them would be great with another partner. It's just, we're gonna obviously have more to talk about them in the next episode. But yeah, that roadblock thing, or not the roadblock, the whole U-turn thing. Real quick comments on that since we did forget it. Rossi, do you have anything to add on the whole thing?
I thought it was a really smart move, because it really, like, questions, not questions, what's the word? Confuses Justin and Diana about where they stand with the teams, because there's been a lot of confusion as to where, like, if they're irritating or not, and so it really kind of threw a wrench in all that. So I think it was smart, but then when Justin confronted the girls, and they lied, and then it got back to them. It just they made it worse. Like, they had it was smart play, and then they had dug their own grave.
Yeah, I think that a person better equipped for conflict, and I think it's been clear this season that Chris is not very good with conflict at all. Somebody else could have handled that a lot better and thrown it right back around on Justin. But Jared, do you have any opinion on this whole U-turn argument between Logan and Chris and Justin and Dana? And at the same time, do you like that they're setting up a new rivalry now that we know Tanner and Josh are gone?
I thought the whole drama about the U-turn was really well played, and I thought it was interesting kind of how many different ways it could have gone. I think Tiffany and Chris did a great job of just lying and I suppose just getting rid of the accusations that they U-turned Justin and Diana. I thought it was really smart of Justin to sort of confront the cheerleaders and sort of turn them against the paparazzi, and then there's one team, because at this point everybody wanted to U-turn Justin and Diana regardless, and for him to sort of confront Tiffany and Krista, even though they'd already used their U-turn, so it was kind of a moot point, it turned them against Logan and Chris, and then there was one less team kind of gunning for Justin and Dana. So I mean, that was a really good move. I think Chris definitely could have turned it back around if he'd had some more time to think about it. But I think the whole situation was just really fascinating, and I mean, that could play out 10 different ways in different seasons, so it was really good to watch.
Let's talk about Tiffany and Krista really quickly if we haven't talked enough about them so far. Rossi, how do you feel about Tiffany and Krista? We talked a little bit earlier on. Anything to add?
You mean Vanessa and whoever I was thinking of?
Yeah.
No, they've definitely improved, like, both game-wise and, like, personality-wise. That sounds weird. They didn't get a new personality, but they've just improved overall. And they've been thinking a lot smarter from U-turning to the first place team when they're in last place to lying things about it. Just better from the crying episode 1. So,
well, Jared, let me ask your opinion on this. Because, again, this is all theory, and it's all stuff that's just in the background, but we've shown that Tiffany and Krista are not necessarily always the smartest team, but I think there's times where maybe they underestimate themselves. I mentioned earlier that it was almost kind of clever on their part that they were able to, whether it was intentional or unintentional, convince Tanner and Josh that they were helping them. Even in this one here, Rossi were saying they did a good job of deflecting the whole thing. Do you think that they're better manipulators they give themselves credit for? If they really applied themselves to this, could they be like a great manipulative Amazing Race team, Jared?
I definitely think they could be, but I agree that they do tend to maybe underestimate themselves a bit. And I think lots of the stuff that happens is more so by chance than them kind of geniusly engineering it. Yeah.
So we have one more team to talk about, and I saved them for last for a reason, just so that Kristen gets annoyed at this. We know she listens to the episodes if she's mentioned in the episode, so I'm going to tell her that we're mentioning her in this episode. We're mentioning... I honestly am blanking on the names right now. Joey and who? Kelsey. That wasn't even a joke. Kelsey and Joey, the most forgettable team for me, who I now remember for only 2 things. One, that Joey wears a hat with his own name on it, knowing that people like me are going to forget him. And 2, that he's the only man I've seen on this episode that not only carries, but uses a rape whistle to get attention. The guy hailed a taxi with a rape whistle. This is what I will remember him for when the season is over. Again, nothing against them. Good competitive team. Consistently we're seeing a second-place finisher, but they're just so forgettable for me. So, Rossi, I already think I know where you lie on this, judging by your profile pic that I'm looking at. But Joey and Kelsey, who I'm still struggling to remember the names of.
Oh, I love them. How can you not like them? How are they not memorable? There's 6 teams.
Yeah, and what do we have to talk about other than the rape whistle with them this week?
They are just so fun. They're so dorky, but they're so great. I'm so 100% like Team Kristen with this. 100% anti-Colin. I don't get what you're thinking. They're just great. They're good entertainment. They're weird. They're quirky. They're smart. They're all around good at the race. And I can't wait to prove you wrong when they win.
Well, I mean, hey, them winning, let's be honest. If they win, that has nothing to do with whether they're a memorable team. Purple Scientists won on one of the best seasons. Jared, are you going to be on my side? Is anybody on my side?
Kind of. I think that out of the remaining teams, they probably are like the least memorable. But I still enjoy watching them. I just think there's something about them that like they're pretty much like the nicest team left. Probably one of the nicest Amazing Race teams on the planet. Yeah, I think they do a good job of just being buddy-buddy with everybody, and then they surprise people, like when they U-turn Tanner and Josh after Joe was like, no, we're not U-turning you guys. Yeah, so I think that maybe they don't provide the most drama and stuff, but I think it's fun to watch them just because they are so genuinely nice, I think. And it's not kind of in like a queasy, like, this is over the top and just, ugh, type of way. They just are having so much fun, and they're just a really nice team.
I'm going to agree with almost everything you guys said. And again, go back to what I've said in past episodes. It's not even that I really have a reason to dislike them or anything, and I don't dislike them. It's just, for whatever reason, every time they show up on screen, it takes me a second to remember who they are. More than anything, I'm not down on them. I'm so confused as to how people can be loving them the most when I just have trouble remembering them. I don't know. We'll see how this goes next week, maybe. Before we go, I have one more thing to talk about. I'm going to give this... We love Phil on this show, I think. And we love when Phil has his rather embarrassing moments. But am I the only one that noticed that awful blouse that Phil was wearing in this episode? That actually somehow made it look like he had, like, pretty significant breasts underneath that blouse? Am I the only one that noticed it, Rossi? Oh, Phil's calling you. He found out what we just said.
I have no idea what you're talking about, so maybe Jared can fill us in.
Jared, did you notice Phil's terrible blouse and his man boobs?
I did not, but now that you've mentioned it, I definitely want to go back and watch the pit stop in the end of the episode, because, I mean, this is intriguing. Yeah, I think you need to screenshot a picture and check this out.
Yeah, I'm going to get a screenshot, and Jared's going to attach to our post, because I'm obviously the only one that's noticed this, but I guarantee when anybody sees this, they're going to be like, did they run out of clothes and, you know, he was pulling this off of Kelsey's wardrobe or something? Because it is definitely a very feminine blouse that is meant to show off breasts that Phil doesn't have. But in the process, it makes it look like the man has breasts. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. This is epic fail of the season for Phil. Let's just move on from this, since nobody can see what I'm talking about right now. But everybody listening, go to our page and you'll see it. Our predictions before we go. This was a team we all... I don't think we were that much looking forward to them, but we definitely all had high expectations for on the race. Let's just go backwards here. Noah had them finishing in first place. Jared, you had them finishing in third. Rossi, you and Kristen had them finishing in fourth. I get the point because I had them finishing in fifth, so only one spot off. So all of us predicted them to go higher than they did. All of us predicted them to go top 5. Are we a little bit disappointed in Tanner and Josh, or is this a good place for them to go? Give your final thoughts on Tanner and Josh, as well as a better hashtag for them than Team Texas, if you can come up with it. Rossi?
No, this is good. I'm glad / surprised that the team, like the odds-on favorite to win, didn't win. So I always think it makes the season better. Like, I think as much as I like the cyclists, they were kind of that team for me. The team that I expected to win, kind of, like that strong team. And when they go out in this kind of fashion, I'm like, oh, who's going to win now? So I think it just makes the end more exciting. And hashtag team hot for cheerleaders.
We all thought, I think they were going to be hot for the racers, the runners at the beginning of the season, the track stars. That's what was talked up. But yeah, this cheerleader thing would have been interesting if they elaborated on it a bit more. Jared, final thoughts on Tanner and Josh. Disappointment if you have any, and a hashtag for them.
I think they were overall a lot more likable than we thought they were going to be coming into the season. I think I said they were going to be 100% in love with themselves, and I mean that gradually dipped down throughout the episodes to maybe 90% towards the end, maybe a little bit lower. So, I mean, that was good to see. I mean, their injury was great because that just made them a more interesting team overall because they weren't just going gung-ho at everything. Yeah, so hashtag for them, I think it has to be hashtag pulled a hammy.
That hammy thing, that kind of was dropped from the show, so yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. Another thing that maybe we could see more deleted scenes on in the future.
A magician healed him.
Yeah. I'm gonna just go with, since the good ones have been taken, hashtag thanks for the point, Tanner and Josh.
Ooh.
I think that this is a good spot for them to go. I mean, I predicted them in 5th, and I would rather us move on. I like that we're moving on to, as the preview for next week goes, Logan and Chris versus the green team, everybody else versus the green team, whatever it's going to be.
Isn't that every episode?
Yeah, somebody's against the green team in every episode, and we'll see if that continues all the way to the end. But also, can the winning streak, which is at, 6 in a row right now, we had a mention of that in this. Rossi, you are kind of the expert on this. Who has the record for most wins and most first place finishes on a leg?
I think it's Rachel and the military guy. I don't remember them.
Rachel and military guy, we all remember. Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember.
I think
somebody
it's them.
that many times. What season was that?
That was with the other Rachel from Big Brother.
Oh, that's why I tried not to watch the most of that season. Okay, so yeah, I guess they're creeping up on that record here, and we'll see if that continues. We'll be back next week. I don't know who will be back next week, whether Noah will or not, or Rossi and Jared, if you're going to attempt to join us again. But more to continue next week, as they're still in India. So thanks for coming back to the show, Rossi, and proving that you're still one of the Amazing Race fans on the Amazing Race Oz. You haven't given up completely.
Good to be back, without Noah, of course.
And Jared, thank you for all the insight and proving to us that you are alive.
No problem, it's good to be back.
What was that squeaking? Do you have like a dog in the background?
Yep.
And a bird?
Yep.
Wow. You
And the lawnmower, it's all going on.
Is the lawnmower scaring the bird and the dog right now?
I think it's annoying the dog, and the bird is she's annoying in general, so.
Alright, well, the bird and the dog have officially had more time on the season than Alex Morella, so we'll see if they'll join us next week. And that's it. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, comment on our posts, listen to our show, download our show. Thank you for downloading our show. Tell us if you want Noah back, and I'll gladly step down for a week and he'll learn how to record it on his own. And until next time, we will speak to you on the mining card.